What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition here of Bettin N Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we got a very fun one, yet a very sad one, of course, for those that know. We are covering Million Day at Colonial Downs and their ALL STAKES Pick5 that ends in the Arlington Million. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. Of course, if you guys are enjoying the podcast, please go down below the video player, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it because not only is it completely free to do and is the best way to help out our channel, but it also pushes these videos out into YouTube's algorithm to hopefully bring more horse players to the HHH Racing Podcast. Of course, for that, we thank you. As I mentioned, guys, this is a fun card. It's a fantastic card. I'll get into it in a little bit. It's not what it used to be. However, it's still a ton of fun, headed by the 1.25 miles. Always an interesting turf race, running 1.25 miles for the Grade 1 Arlington Million. I see a bunch of people are in here already. Really greatly appreciate it, because if you, again, as you can see scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now, you'll see our podcast schedule for the week. Now, Bettin N Boozin starts off the week 8 p.m. Eastern every single Wednesday with, of course, myself, Charlie, and Patrick. Then you have Thursday Picks and Ponies at 8 p.m. Eastern with Howard, Pete, and Paul. Pete's hosting this week as they're covering the Sword Dancer card at Saratoga, and, you know, might have a little bit of interest in the Sword Dancer now, even more than before. It's unbelievable, guys. You guys can follow me on Twitter at APRoscoeK if you want to hear all about that on Saturday. And then every single Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern through the end of the Del Mar meet, you have Pacific Horseplayers, and they are covering the Del Mar Saturday late pick 5 with Noah, Ryan, and Jackson. Of course, as you can see, you can also listen to every single podcast we post here on YouTube in audio form over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over there if you're an audio listener. Of course, we have TikTok and Instagram. I'll be posting a bunch from Saratoga this weekend at Bettin N Boozin Podcast. So please go give us a follow if you're into the short form content. And of course, we have our normal power picks, guys. We just crossed over 900 total picks since February of 2021, and we're still well above the ROI. And it's very, very affordable. And with the different tip sheets out there, ours only costs $5 every single weekend, and you get yours every Saturday. 2 full tracks of price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. We here at the HHH Racing Podcast have you covered with the power picks. It's all done through Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link is also in the description below, and you can review previous editions of those power picks before you buy them, or if you just want to learn more about our podcast in general, please head on over to HHH Racing Podcast.com. And I, of course, would be remiss if I didn't get to gush about Arlington here for a couple minutes, but there's only one man that can suffice with me in that regard. And of course, it is my good co-host from the Ohio State University, my friend, Charlie Freeman. Charlie, my friend, always going to be a sad card for us now, but still really good. Looking forward to this Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's still some big names. There's still certainly some stuff to be excited about, but obviously if it's not going to be at Arlington, and obviously, as we talked about before, the field sizes, but also just the environment, the experience, the whole spectacle that Million Day truly was. It's something that you couldn't appreciate unless you really got to experience it. And I know you were, Kyle, and I can also say I was fortunate enough to have been to at least a couple millions to get to see what that's like. So, obviously Colonial is going to do their best to replicate it to what they can, but nothing will really ever match what it once was.
No, and obviously, look, I love Colonial. Colonial, their turf course is absolutely fantastic. Obviously, that's what Arlington was known for, was their fantastic turf course. And you can see I have a bunch of pictures loaded up, of course, because anytime I get to gush about Arlington, I will gladly oblige to everyone out there. But it's just, there's no other better place that I've found. I've been to Keeneland, been to Saratoga. I've been super lucky to be at all these tracks. And really, Charlie, just nothing comes close for me. Keeneland's been the closest for me. Saratoga's fantastic, don't get me wrong, but man, just the marble and everything out there that was Arlington was just absolutely fantastic. For those that don't know, Arlington was actually, it burned down in 1985 and was rebuilt back to basically Richard Duchessois, the former owner of Arlington, actually went to Royal Ascot and literally was like, pointed at it. It was like, I want to build that in the United States. And he came up with Arlington, and as you can see by the grandstand, it was an absolutely fantastic place to take in races. You can see on the screen now the old paddock that was once there with all the ivy, the bushes lining and everything. Everyone always had a good time. And obviously, Charlie, we are a little biased as it is our hometown track, but I don't know about you, but nothing beat it for me. And that's my favorite picture of me and my wife to this day. And it was her first time ever at Arlington and first time in getting into the ludicrousness that is this game.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I've always said that I'll stand by this. I will give it that Arlington, doesn't maybe have the views of a Del Mar or Santa Anita, or maybe, some of that historic feeling, even though I haven't been there before and I've heard of Saratoga, or maybe, just how close to the action you always feel when you're at a Keeneland. But for me, if you just look at everything it does have, from just like you said, how, how the carousel area is, how beautiful, or the concourse area, how beautiful all that is, to just the views you get from the track, to the fact that you could literally, in a similar way to Keeneland, even though it was a bigger place, I would argue from just about anywhere there, you have a perfect view at Arlington. They just do such a good job. I know a thing that always would get knocked also is, things obstructing views. And I feel like at Arlington, you truly always had a good view from just about anywhere. The environment was great. You could also literally, they had it, from the lawn set up, they had it set up for all different price ranges to go. It was always easy to get everywhere. The paddock is beautiful and easily accessible to anyone. You didn't really need any special access. I just feel like Arlington truly always had everything. And even the racing, up until obviously when it was starting to close, it went downhill. But before that, honestly, I mean, their racing could compete with just about anyone. You almost always got beautiful weather as well. It was just a perfect place. You didn't even have to be a big horse racing fan. It was just, I remember taking my friends in high school. It was just a perfect place to just sit down with some people and enjoy the weather and catch up on whatever while watching some great racing. There was just nothing like it.
So dude, when I worked at a camp, I took people, they always ask when we were going to go back. And not only that, but you can see on the screen right now is Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara ran in the 2021 version of the Beverly D. By far the best horse I've ever seen, like in person, in terms of the way she looked, the way she just brought around herself. She was unbelievable. Won easily, convincingly that day. And of course, unfortunately, she passed away not too long after this photo was taken. And she was absolutely fantastic. You can see after one of my long nights working at Arlington, the fantastic clock tower out there with all of the flowers. Of course, you have Santa Barbara right there, and 2 Emmys. My friend is a horse that doesn't get mentioned too much, of course, but. He beat Bricks and Mortar that day. Yes, because Domestic Spending won. No, he beat Domestic Spending. Bricks and Mortar won in 2019.
Oh, I know. I had a bunch of tickets with Domestic Spending. I was there that day. That was brutal, but it was incredible to watch. But yeah, brutal beat. But yeah, no, incredible.
I mean, easily better. And of course, right there, you have all of the Arlington Million trophies that will be up for grab on Saturday. Charlie, I know, again, we probably didn't have to do that, but anytime I get a chance to gush about Arlington, I know you as well. We love to do so. But guys, getting into the racing on Saturday, it's a fantastic card. And I see everyone in the chat, greatly appreciate it. If you guys are here and you guys have opinions on these races already, I know that, a lot of you people have looked at these cards already for both Saratoga and Million Day. So please comment in the live chat if you guys have anything. And Charles Lockhart, my friend, I don't know if I've seen your name too much before. Greatly appreciate it. He said Arlington was a beautiful race course. Always felt I was wagering at a Disneyland-like racetrack. It just literally, it feels like with all the marble and the finishings, Dutch Swad did such a good job to take care of it over the years. I couldn't agree with you more. Charlie, the pick 5 that ends in the Million starts in race number 7. Again, this is all stakes, but of course, Charlie, it wouldn't be, racing wouldn't be against me if we didn't have 2 turf sprints to knock out first in this card. It's the Andy Guest Stakes purse of $150,000 going 5.5 furlongs on the inner turf course at Colonial Downs. And of course, this is for the fillies and mares. The next race we're going to talk about is the one for the boys. But again, a purse of $150,000. And the morning line favorite is number 2, Mrs. Gambellini, Tyler Gaffalione, and Safi Joseph Jr. at 3-1. Your second choice is the number 3, the Maryland-bred Hollywood Walk, Mikael Sanchez and Michael Trombetta at 4-1. Your third choice is the number 5, Crown Imperial, Ben Curtis and John Ortiz. I'll tell you what, Ben Curtis has been doing a hell of a lot over at Colonial so far this meet. Charlie, I put our picks up on the screen right now. I'm going with the number 8, Cart Girl Sam, the Florida bred, at 6-1. Charlie, you are going with Mrs. Gambellini, who is the projected morning line favorite out there for Saffie Joseph.
Yeah, and I like to always take pride, especially when they're leaving their stomping grounds, and being right on when it comes to these Gulfstream horses. And I really do think Mrs. Gambolini is a legit one for Saffie. This is one who really burst onto the scene towards the end of last year after coming over from Kentucky Downs and finally making that turf debut at Gulfstream and romped as the odds-on favorite. And then after that was sidelined for a while. I'm assuming it was some sort of injury because she looked way too good that day to wait to come back all the way until April of this year. And yet, despite that, came back, ran a buyer top at the time to win, and then two back, missed by just ahead with my boy Rocco Bowen aboard. And what reality to me is just sort of looked like a horse that prefers 5.5 than 5 and maybe needed to get back to that stretch out. Sure enough, that's what Saffie tried and lost to a really nice Gulfstream sprinter in Great Venezuela. I just think she's been in terrific form. I think, has gotten a little bit of a break and now gets to come back here after about a month off. Seems to be getting better and better after that layoff from whatever injury it was that she dealt with. And I just think Tyler G is going to have her in a perfect stalking spot, sitting right off that speed. And when she's turning for home, I really do think she's going to be rolling for Saffie.
Yeah, my thing with her, Charlie, is, I get it. Like, it's Gulfstream Park in the summer. I can ragtag on you about that all I want, but shouldn't she really have won those last two races? The two back, she has an excuse because she broke slow, got absolutely pinched at the gate, and didn't get up. But that last one, I mean, she had a perfect trip, and maybe you could argue that synthetic is not her best surface. But if she gets a perfect trip at Gulfstream Park in the summer, now comes here to what I would assume is a much tougher, not a much tougher, but a tougher spot than that. I just can't trust her at low odds. That's my only gripe with her. Other than that, her figure is totally fitting here.
No, I think that's fair. And look, I mean, we'll get to best bets later, but similarly to you, Kyle, there's a reason why I won't have them in turf sprints. Yeah, I'd be honest, straight up 3-1 is definitely a little rich for me. I would probably not want any horse in this race at less than, 4-1, I'd say, or so, maybe 75, 4-1. Again, like for me, it's just, and I get that she was, 2-5 that day. And I think part of that, to be honest, was just this horse getting overbet because it is a Saffie horse. But Great Venezuela is a really nice horse. Also a horse that does actually like the Tapeta. And like I said, I didn't even need to see the 8-5 to know that this one was going to be, the other short price. So that's the only other slight pushback I'd give. Just aside from that, I do think that she does prefer turf. I also do think, while yes, it's Gulfstream in the summer, I also think she kind of got unlucky in that she ran into one of the only other actually talented Gulfstream horses at that time of year in Great Venezuela. But look, again, I think gets back on her surface, got a little bit of a break. Also gets Tyler G, who's just been terrific. And I think Saffie knows what he's doing putting this one here. And I think as long as she breaks, I just love her trip. But I agree. I think 3-1 is not ideal.
Yeah, no, and that's my only gripe with her. Again, it's the fact that, two back, like I said, she had an excuse, but last time I feel like just getting the rail the whole time, she probably should have won. But again, getting back to turf, which is probably her preferred surface, getting Tyler G, of course, who is, I believe, his wife is the daughter of the E5 Racing's owner, so which makes a ton of sense why he's riding here. Look, it's a total. I understand the play is what I'm trying to say, but again, at a short price for a horse that doesn't necessarily shown that she likes to win, I'm going to go elsewhere, and I'm landed on the number 8, Cart Girl Sam. Guys, you know my view on turf sprints, and will I be betting on this race? I'll be at Saratoga, so maybe, but probably not, considering you guys know, again, my track record with turf sprints. But Cart Girl Sam last time, and of course it's at Churchill, can't show the replay. She was very, very visually impressive that day. And it's one of those, Charlie, you and I gotten over the last couple of years when we've been doing this, we've been getting into a lot more of visual handicapping, not necessarily just looking at buyers, but watching these replays and seeing how these horses run. She has a huge stride on her, and she's only 4 years old. This will be, 4th off the layoff here. Again, you're getting farther and farther into the weeds, but she sat a nice trip, don't get me wrong, but she should be able to sit a very nice trip just like that again. My only gripe with her is that she might not want the extra half furlong. Flat 5 was where she's been more than at her best. And you're getting Castellano instead of Leperoux, which in my opinion is an upgrade, but I completely understand. I
love Castellano.
I like that she's drawn outside. I like that she's going to sit close in a colonial surface that hasn't been at these sprinting distances, hasn't been too favorable to closers. I just think she's going to completely trip out in here again. My only gripe is that extra half furlong, Charlie.
Yeah, I would actually push back a little on that. I agree with a lot of what you said. That's why I have her in the money. I'm not worried about the extra half furlong. I would more so just be worried that there's other speed in this race, which might make her have to work for a little more. But if you look at her one effort at 5.5, I mean, they went outrageously fast. 21 and 6. Okay, it's a little fast, okay, but to be under 44 seconds, like that would be fast if you were going 5 flat, and they did that at 5.5. So I mean, you looked at what they did at when they got to the 5 furlongs at 55. So like that would be fast 5. So to me, it was a fast time. Leparoux, I know you're not the biggest fan of him. I'm not really either. But I will say, to be fair to him, with how crazy that pace was, I don't really think she had a chance to win there. And then last time they didn't walk by any means, but it was a lot more reasonable fractions and she got it done. So I think she absolutely can win this race. I would definitely use her in horizontals. For me, she would be more of an underlay simply because of my concerns that there's other pace. But I think she can get the 5.5. It's just going to be a question of what kind of pace is there. And if it is similar to that pace she had to face two back, which could be the case, because I mean, you look at Boston right at the outside, is going to be fast, and there's going to be some horses like Girl of My Dreams and others to the inside they're going to want to go as well. I definitely think she has the ability. It's just going to be and I like that she's outside. I like the jockey upgrade. I just think the big question for me is she going to be pushed too hard that she can actually hold off some of these others off the pace?
Yeah, but I also like that. I also like the fact that she rates. Honestly, she rates close to the pace, but still being the fact that she can, while all the rest of them are going to speedball at this 5.5. I like the ability, like that she has the ability to sit. Castellano's going to read the break, sit outside, maybe first flight, and hopefully get the first run on a lot of others in this race. Charlie, you have the number 5 Crown Imperial in here, and this is going to be one I would assume is going to sit a very similar trip to that 8 Cart Girl Sam, going to be near the pace, but still wants to rate. This is one I was big on last time. This was when I was down at Indy. Well, big. I mean, it's a turf sprint. You guys know my big when it comes to that, but still was very heavily bet that day. Granted, it was a super, super firm turf course that day. No one really did any closing at all. So the fact that she made up a little bit of ground should show you the ability of this animal. It's just a matter of can she put it together on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's why, not to toot my own horn because it's nothing impressive at all, but that's why I didn't bet, those turf sprints at Indy and stayed away entirely. It was exactly what you were saying, Kyle. Just looked like speed was holding no matter what, and I just didn't want to get into that.
This is 54 and 3. I mean, that's ridiculous for 5 furlongs, and I believe was a track record that day.
And to say that 21 flat was a cold figure tells you how fast it must have been going. And that 43 flat isn't even have a red number; it's normal. So yeah, to me, Crown Imperial still has has great talent. To me was really impressive in that Churchill Downs race 3 back. Losing to Queen Maxima is nothing to be embarrassed about. I know Bling didn't come back to him, but Bling's been a horse who's been in tremendous form. There's the same horse also off a massive layoff who won at Keeneland. So I still think there's something really there. And as you mentioned, Ben Curtis has been tremendous here. This is one again for me who I think could get a really nice trip. And I was almost tempted to put this one on top. I just really like the two. From value-wise, I actually would argue Crown Imperial, especially just because people might just see that she disappointed as a favorite and, not better the way she should. I think 9-2 is, I would argue she is the best value of any horse on the board out of the ones I'm interested in. I think she's absolutely a must-use. I think the way the Colonial track will play and where her trip will be, and that she could maybe even save a little ground if she clears a few. I think, again, she's another one that makes a ton of sense here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have a big opinion in here, like just a lot of these at the configuration, but Crown Imperial is definitely one I would consider using if you're playing this late pick 5, just for the sole fact that she ran really well on a track that played her absolutely no favors last time out. So again, that 78, I think, looks a lot better visually than it does on paper. The only other horse I want to touch on, Charlie, and we'll move on, he's number 4, Banned on a Run. I know
use this one.
But it's the same fact that while there's speed in here, she's shown the ability to rate, and that's the one thing I want to. The thing though is that she hasn't been here since April. You could argue where has she been? The workouts aren't the best. However, you are getting Louis, which again, I don't know what Frankie was doing at Keeneland this spring. It was unspeakable things on a lot of different horses, and this is one of those rides. So the fact that you get Louis back, this horse is working a little bit forwardly, had a nice maintenance work last time out. Getting Louis aboard, this horse is going to be somewhere in the mid-level, something to 1, probably 6-7 to 1. I think this is at least one you need to include if you're playing any type of exotic underneath. But again, same reason why I would like Crown Imperial on Saturday is why I would like Banned on a Run. In the Andy Guest Stakes, I'm going 8-4. Charlie's going 258. Charlie, let's move on to the next turf sprint on the card because we love it so much. Why not do it twice? It is the Van Cleef Stakes, going again 5.5 furlongs, this time on the outer turf course. And for the boys, it brings on a full field of 13. However, Charlie, it will not stay that way, as I will mention that in the past, and we'll have to see if did you see that as well, that like half the field ran this past weekend.
I know didn't No Balls and Coppola run. I don't know who else ran, to be honest with you, but I know
I'll show you, because this is not going to be a 13 horse field come Saturday unless they're Linda Ricing it and we're going to run in 5 days. You'll see the Van Cleef. It's a field of 13 again, will not stay this way. No Balls will be out most likely, along with a bunch of others, including Coppola. So those are your first two favorites gone immediately. Your morning line favorites are going to be shared between Witty, the number 1, with Elizabeth Merriman at 6-1. Step Forward, Mikel Sanchez and Mark Cassidy at 6-1. And the best named racehorse in the land between Issy Vungu Vungu, Johnny V, and Graham Motion at 8-1. And then, of course, you have the number 11, Nothing Better, Luis Saez and Jorge Duarte, horse that's been 8 and has been around the block more than once. Charlie, you see our picks on the bottom of the screen. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know about you. This is one that I feel even worse than the last race. I think this race, granted, with a lot of scratches, though, but this race is also pretty tough.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see it. It's a very interesting scenario where we both have the same horses in second and third, but neither of us have our horse on top. I agree. I thought this one was tougher. I really couldn't figure out who to put on top. To be honest, I was going to try to beat No Balls and Coppola regardless, just because I had a feeling they would be too heavy favorites, and I like Coppola a lot more at the 5 flat, and I just think No Balls is, maybe starting to regress.
And just to point it out, Charlie, real quick, is that there's a bunch of horses in here that just ran this past weekend. Witty will be in, granted, barring anything else. I just want to point out that we know horses will be scratching, at least unless they do, again, pull a Linda Rice. No Balls, they all ran in the Kentucky Downs turf sprint preview at Ellis Park this past weekend, which we also covered on this show. No Balls got third. Or no, sorry, that was Sunday, excuse me. But we did cover, of course, the Kentucky Downs Stakes at Ellis Park this past weekend. Mr. Ran at Lone Star. He's good, but going up is a synthetic horse. He's good. Bear River actually won that turf sprint, but again, ran 2 days ago. And again, Nothing Better will be running, but Coppola also ran in that Kentucky Derby or the Kentucky Downs preview. I did that all last week as well, saying Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Downs preview day. So again, that's 3 of your big favorites, Charlie, that are out in this race. So basically, the morning lines are going to be completely shattered in this race. Well, they're not going to redo them, but they probably should. But anyway, Charlie, your top pick with the number 6, Step Forward.
Yeah, and I just think Step Forward could honestly get a really nice trip. This is an interesting one who, had been running at 6 for a while over at Woodbine. And then after that, tried to stretch out to 6.5 and, really didn't do any running at all in those 2 efforts. And then they take this one off, then doesn't come back for almost a year later and runs, a disappointing 8th at 30-1, but, only lost by 4 lengths to some horses that have been continuously solid sprinters in New York. And then comes back after that at 12-1 and loses by a nose to Twisted Figure, who's a nice horse, beat Final Verdict, who's a nice horse. And I just thought, honestly, for IRAD, set a really nice trip there. And I just think third off now, sticking at the distance that's working for Cassie. Visually to me, had the best ever that this horse has run in a very long time. I just think third off now can take another step forward. Seems to be working fine. And I just think if Sanchez is aggressive enough here to just sit that stalking trip again and just let some of these others fly but stay close enough, I just think this one has a chance. And I have a feeling now, I was going to say before the scratches, I'd get every bit of those odds. Now, obviously, probably won't, but I still don't see this one being the favorite, which, I'm kind of happy about to race this wide open. But I just think trip-wise alone, this one should naturally sort of put himself in a decent enough spot.
Yeah, I probably missed something with this horse, to be completely honest. I'll be, like I said, I'll put my hand up like Joey.
This is not our special.
With Joey Cold Cuts on this one, I'll put my hand up. Yeah, third off the layoff for this horse, ran really well last time out at Saratoga. So again, might probably miss something with this horse. And again, you will not get any type of those odds. He'll probably be somewhere around 3-1 now in this race. However, still could take another step forward, if you will. There's my teacher joke. Teacher joke of the day. Ring the bell for the boss man. look, Charlie, I am not proud of this pick at all. And turf sprint, blah, blah, blah. I'm not proud of this pick. He was awful last time in the Wolf Hill. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. Obviously, I was there that day with Emma, Pat, and Meg. He was awful. The only thing that I'm trying to say, I know he's 7, but it was almost just too bad to be true. Granted, it was off a little bit of a layoff. You got 3.5 months now. Coming back should be a little bit more fresh. Johnny V hops aboard, which of course I like, but would I be racing to the windows to bet this horse at 5-2? Absolutely not. Will he probably get a good trip in this race? And if he's back to running his best stuff and he's won on this track before, he can easily win. It's just a matter of if this horse can get back to even earlier this year when he ran a 93 before he went to Dubai. Now coming back into here second off that little bit of a layoff. Hopefully he can get better again. I'm not racing to bet this horse at 5-2. However, I'm going to give him one more chance, and I promise it's not because he's the greatest horse named in the game right now. It's just the fact that I'm hoping he can come back to his ways second off of that Dubai layoff. But again, I'll
touch on him briefly as move on.
Please.
As you can pull up Witty, but I was just going to say quickly, because this is what I was tempted to put in there. My just hesitancies outside of the age. I do agree with you, Kyle. I like that Johnny V's aboard because that makes me kind of think that he also doesn't, think that last effort is necessarily what he has. My concern is people are going to see that this horse was well meant. They're going to see this one ran in a grade 1. They're going to, see some of these, the 93, 95, 94, which, makes this horse probably arguably the horse to beat in this field, especially with the scratches. And like you said, I think you're probably going to get 5-2 on this horse as the favorite as a 7-year-old, where I need to see again if he can find that form. And even if he does, it doesn't my 6 that we just talked about just ran a 90 and seems to be on the improve.
Yeah.
My issue is I was going to put this horse underneath and, third most likely, but I just can't at 5-2 for at that point. Horizontally, because these races are impossible, would probably use the horse, but that was my reservation.
I think that's fair, especially with big opinions that you and I both have coming into these later races. We would definitely spread in these races. Witty is a horse that's actually really interesting. It's a complete deep closer in this 5.5 turf sprint division. Last time out, the thing that I think a lot of people are going to key in on is that he lost to Bring the Band Home, who won by 4 1/4.
Good.
Which, as of right now, barring any Euros, whatever, he's easily the best turf sprint horse right now in the U.S. Just look at, he won the Troy super easily, 105, 109 in the Harvey Pack. This horse is by far the best turf sprinter we have in the country right now. Just a matter of, can he continue to put it together by November? Witty, again, in a cold pace with 21-2 in the quarter. Harvey Pack only losing by 6. Again, 4 1/4 of that was to Bring the Band Home. Still getting an 89. But again, Charlie, it's so hard to trust these types of horses in the 5.5 turf sprints.
Yeah, and like I said, don't worry, I still love my closers in these sprints. A horse of mine that just won a Cohost, we were talking about before we went on in Reef Runner. But think about how long I've been chasing that horse to finally actually get that one up. To me, Witty kind of reminds me of that horse in a way, in terms of this is a really good one to use underneath, in your exactas and tries that get up there. And look, again, because these races are wide open, I would absolutely use Witty in a horizontal, because the last thing you want to do on the other end, we talk about, a horse just wiring the field and walking them. But at the same time, the last thing you want is then you see they just set a suicidal pace, and then someone comes from the clouds when it falls apart, and you're like, oh, well, if that happens, it's Witty, and you don't have the horse. So absolutely would have to use this one. But for me, is more of an underneath horse. Now, I will say I actually do like the rail, because, he can save all that ground. And I do think he can show a little bit more speed to stay closer. I also think another big positive, I know they went fast, but the fact that he was able to close and win, going away for fun 2-back shows to me that maybe he does have a little more in him, where he doesn't at 5.5 necessarily have to be that far back. And like you mentioned, that 6 lengths looks a lot worse until you realize who he lost to, and that the rest of the field wasn't, that much closer. So yeah, I like him underneath, but again, it's just always tough for a horse that only has one way, which is needs a pace meltdown.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's why it's so hard to trust. And with all the funny thing is that all of the favorites that I mentioned probably scratching at the start of this, they're all speed. So it does not help Witty at all that those horses ran at Ellis Park. Last horse we'll talk about, Charlie.
It does help this one a lot.
Yes, it does. There's nothing better. Luis Saez, Jorge Duarte ran really nicely in the Wolf Hill. with Issy Vungu Vungu. And actually, if you look at this chart, Charlie, he's the only horse that was anywhere near the lead that stayed up. You can see Issy Vungu Vungu was close to the lead and obviously faded. For Harp, who was a longer shot in that race, completely faded, and Nothing Better had the lead, and he ran super well. Again, you can see started 6th, started 7th, started 4th, started 5th, and he's the only one that was on the lead and stayed up close to at the end of the race. So I think he ran huge that time, and this will now be second off, a tiny bit of a layoff here, but I think that sets up really well. Again, he's 8 years old, but he always runs his race.
Yeah, and gets Louis aboard, which I think is huge, and gets a great gate position. I mean, look, to be honest, I actually wanted to put him on top, especially once you had talked to me before the show about the potential scratches. My only slight concern is that he is 8. I mean, look, it's not like he's done anything wrong or showed regression. That being said, that does make me a little nervous that I don't know. He could come back second off the layoff and take that step forward again. And now with those scratches, he makes – I mean, look, especially with those scratches, horizontally, he's a must-use. And even, vertically, I think I'd absolutely be using him underneath and maybe even put him on top in a few scenarios and some exactas and tries. I'm just a little worried about what he's going to do at 8. But again, the ability still has been there and gets Louis aboard. So I think that one is a must-use in your horizontals.
I feel like we've said that for half the field now at this point, but it is what it is. In the Van Cleef, I'm going 5-1-11. Charlie's going 6-1-11, and this starts the fun races, Charlie. And this is one that I used to love back in the day, and of course now they have changed it to a mile. It's the Secretariat Stakes. This is the start of the stakes that used to be at Arlington Park, of course, not anymore, but it's a grade 2 still. 500,000 now going a mile instead of it used to be a mile and a quarter. And Charlie, man, this I mentioned Santa Barbara. I mentioned all these horses, man. This is a rough version of the Beverly D, to say the least.
It's so bad.
This is, of course, for 3-year-old. I was half expecting. Of course, this is for the boys, but yeah, this is not the best field at all. Morning line favorite is number 8, Dream On, Javier Castellano. Mark Cassie at 5-2 on the morning line. Second choice is the number 2, Maui Strong, Vincent Cheminade for Dale Romans at 7-2. And your third choice is the number 7, Cairo Caper, Victor Carrasco for Pat Schoenthal, I believe, at 9-2. And Charlie, my man, baby, we're both going with the number 4, Simulate, Junior Alvarado and Bill Mott. Charlie, I'll watch that. Let's watch that replay as well from this horse. Again, this is more of a race that didn't necessarily come out of nowhere, but definitely by far his best race of his entire career. But visually, Charlie, I feel like it's the biggest edge in this race when you watch this replay rather than just looking at the figure.
Oh, 100%. It ran against some nice horses. 13 Colonies is a horse from Gulfstream that then moved over to Keeneland and ran some big races. You look at other ones, I believe it wasn't Ashbury Park in that race. I know It didn't set up all that well, but that's a really well-meant Chad Brown horse who romped after coming back. Yeah, look, Simulate's the one that I remembered, and I know if I say this horse's name, Kyle, it's going to upset you, so I'm sorry in advance. But I remember it running a big Saratoga race to break the maiden. That was a bit of a buzz race for a horse named States Rights in that race, who Kyle knows all too well, who he had just beaten that day. But, came back and just looked incredible second off the layoff. I mean, look, when you watch this effort, you look at the names you get around against, as well as that it's Alvarado and Mott. There's no – if I can lock in one horse's odds from the morning lines that we're getting what we'd covered, it'd be this horse at 8-1, because I guarantee you this horse will likely end up being half those odds. I would not be surprised at all if this horse is somewhere around 4-1 or 9-2 and it's the second choice. I mean, Dream On's going to be your favorite. Just has too much success and has ran against too many big names that, these others haven't. But I think this 4 could very well go off as second or third choice and be half those odds. I would love 8-1. I don't think I'm going to get it, but I mean, the figure alone also kind of backs it. Like, to me, that was the visually most impressive effort that any horse in this field has run. So I couldn't not put this one on top.
I just love the way that this horse reaches out, because a lot of these turf runners, when you see these really good turf runners, you can see how they really reach that lead out and almost like grab the turf as they go. I really, really like Simeon. I know he got a perfect trip last time out, but again, there's no one in here that I'm really that scared of at all. If he
kind of creates it though.
Yes,
he's
that's
tactical naturally,
and that's what I was going to say. Is he has that tactical speed, and at Saratoga they've gone slower than 47 flat. And again, you could argue that there really probably wasn't that much in there. Again, there's a 13 Colony, Asbury Park was one. King of Ashes, one of Charlie's favorite horses of all time. I thought he just ran a super good race, granted with a perfect trip, but again, with that natural tactical speed, I feel like he's going to put himself again in a very, very good spot. Breeding is all there to go this type of distance. Again, shortening up from 1.16 to a mile, which can be the tipping point for a lot of people. However, this horse is working lights out in the morning for Bill Mott. Junior Alvarado, his, of course, leading rider, has to come over here to ride this one. All points are setting to go on the number 4, Simulate. Charlie, our 2 horses, we have a like horse and we don't. Of course, Dream On, which is the presumed morning line favorite. This is one of those horses that's, won a lot, but really hasn't won convincingly for me to, really the only big number that this horse has had is in the summer. And in any other race, he hasn't run anything above a 78. So granted, I know this is going to be second off a little bit of a layoff for this horse, but I feel like he's going to have to improve again. And it almost just feels like we know what this horse is by now.
Yeah, the only pushback I'll give is, to me, visually, that effort was really impressive last time, and I think was better than that buyer. Also, because you remember, Tommy, that was an awful day for me. That pen card was just a disaster, and I got killed that day. I think a lot of us did. But what you remember is we were literally all saying before this race, Mi Bago's going to win for fun. Not because of how good the horse was, but because it was incredibly speed favoring that day. And Mi Bago didn't set crazy fractions. I mean, they were walking on the lead. The track was playing towards basically anybody on the lead was just winning. If you were even half decent, we even saw some bombs do that. And yet Dream On sits off the pace and then was the only one to come off that one in the 6. But then even then, you kind of see the 5 and 6 who were off the pace kind of just flatten out. And then Dream On was the only one to actually close up and go away and kind of just one going away comfortably. So to me, for that to be first off the layoff, now second off the layoff, with the way the track was playing and also in a yielding turf, which this horse hadn't done before, that's why I'm giving a little more benefit. To me, that effort maybe is more of a lower 80s in my eyes. And I also do like the consistency. He hasn't had that big eye-catching effort in a long time, I agree with you. But also outside of that 51, he has been ultra consistent, and those efforts match a lot of these others. So to me, I would argue he's the safest bet in the field by far, to finish top 3, top 2. And we'll get the best bets later. But because of that, I am going to use him still to some extent because I do think he can absolutely win here. I just don't like the 5-2. And also, not that he's heavily run, but, in 9 starts, we have seen, like you said, a lot of what he is. Whereas, the horse we have on top in Simulate, I feel like in a good way, there's a lot more unknown and untapped potential.
Yeah, and the fact that, again, it's third off the layoff and second off the layoff took such a step forward for Simulate. I completely agree with you. I think Dream On definitely is the second best horse in my eyes in this field. Again, 5-2 would be a little low on this type of horse for me to bet, but completely understand. I have the number 2, Maui Strong, in second. Complete pace play. There's really not a whole lot of pace in here, which actually is why I like Simulate even more. To not, have to go by, a horse that's going 46 flat in this race. But Maui Strong's had to do that before as you go 2 back at Churchill, and he stayed on really, really nicely. Ran the Manila, ran fine last time. I think this is a horse that's very, very likely to steal it on Saturday if he doesn't get any pace pressure. The only thing is that he is cross-entered, so that is one thing to note. He was cross-entered in it's Thursday's card at Saratoga, so keep your eye on that. Of course, if he runs there, he will not run at Colonial on Saturday, but if he scratches, more than likely to run. I think just a complete pace play. I think he's one that you need to include at least underneath in your bets. Charlie, the last one we'll talk about is Anagata, who's also cross-entered into that same exact race, but if the pace heats up, this is definitely one that's going to become running late.
Yeah, and I just think, honestly, I love that Tyler G decided to hop aboard. And I just think this is one that has shown some flashes and at the very least can get up for a piece. I like that the horse is working forwardly, makes me maybe think that they understand, especially also that they're entering this one back in at a mile, that they know that they're going to have to show a little more speed. And you look, even though he is more of a closing type, he is similar to way to Simulate in that I don't think he's quite as tactical, but he does do a good job as even though he's a closer, he likes to sit, within 2 to 2.5 lengths rather than, 6 or 7 or 8 lengths off and then have to really, truly close. So I think this one makes a ton of sense underneath. And I hear you on Maui Strong. And if that one stays in, I absolutely would be scared that this one could take it. For me, with the price you're going to get in that one, who I think will probably be fighting with R4 for second choice, I just didn't want the horse anywhere. My other issue with Maui Strong is I kind of feel like this one's sort of the opposite of Simulate in that he's tactical and gives himself perfect trips, but he hates winning. Like his last two efforts, he had no excuses, especially two back where he was less than even money. He has every chance to win in both of those starts and just loses because he flat out wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And so my concern is a horse who's 1 for 9. And I just get worried that even when he has it his own way, he doesn't get it done. And for a horse that I think is probably going to be 4-1 or 7-2, I just rather use the 6 who's going to be double those odds underneath. But again, I know you also have the horse more than an underneath play. So I think it's fair, but I feel like in a race where you do go skinnier after the turf sprints, it's one that I would try to toss and try to beat.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think he's definitely needed underneath, but win end would be definitely at least a little bit of a surprise to me. Sam Falcon, my friend, haven't seen you in the chat. Thanks so much for joining the show. 2 and 6 cross entered into a Thursday Saratoga race, as I said, but staged rights also entered. Oh boy, and we're gonna be at Saratoga on Thursday. Oh, here we go. Maybe it's a make or break day on the first day of the Saratoga trip, and man, it will. Oh, I'm gonna do unspeakable things to the tote board on that day, and of course, for me, unspeakable things is definitely not a lot of other people's unspeakable things, but irresponsible wager of the week, I guess we will say on that horse. Of course, I'm going 4-2-8. Charlie's going 4-8-6 in race number 9, the Secretariat Stakes. Charlie, it is, and I think I actually said the Beverly D at the start of that. No, I didn't. I said Secretariat. I thought it in my mind, and I corrected myself. But this next race, Charlie, is the Beverly D, of course, named after the late Richard Duchessois' beautiful wife and longtime partner. And now, Charlie, it's a field of 6, and I'll show the on the screen right now. Your morning line favorite is number 2, Be Your Best, the filly and mare turf Pegasus winner at 9-5 on the morning line. Your second choice is the number 4, Charlene's Dream, the Texas bred, at 7-2 for Castellano and Moger. And the third choice is number 3, Beach Bomb, another South African runner. Luis Saez hops aboard for Grand Motion at 4-1. Actually, no, I completely missed Duvet Day on the outside for Johnny V and Michael McCarthy. Anyway, scrap it. We'll go again. Erase, reboot. I'm going with the 5, though. Spanish Eyes. Charlie, you were going with the number 3, Beach Bomb. We both have Be Your Best in there somewhere. You have Duvet Day in there, and I have Beach Bomb in second. You don't have the horse I have on top anywhere. But anyway, I want to hear what you like about Beach Bomb. This is a horse I was on for a long time, and I still think is extremely talented. It's just a matter of she wins with hot paces, but it'll be interesting to see how the pace narrow shapes out for her on Saturday.
Yeah, these morning line odds are interesting. I did not expect these at all, to be honest with you. I thought Beach Bomb was going to be the favorite. I did not expect Beach Bomb to be 4th choice in a field of 6. Look, Beach Bomb with Louis off, the little bit of a rest wouldn't go as far as necessarily say a layoff, but I guess almost 2 months now. So yeah, I guess it would as a layoff at this point. Look, she ran the effort of her career last time. She ran her absolute heart out. Lost to the Monster. I know she lost after that, but still, she feels pretty. Is the best in the division. Obviously, can naturally lose sometimes, but still, the finish within a half length of that horse is incredible. Has been in pretty solid form for a while now. Has had some narrow wins, has had some close losses, but always runs her best. I mean, 11 out of 15 in the top 2 is pretty damn impressive for her. And I just honestly think with the way this field shaped up, and with the distance, I just think Louis can work out a really nice trip with her. I think obviously Be Your Best is going to be the one who's going to go to the lead, which is fine, along with Charlene's Dream. And I just envision the two of them engaging in a bit of a duel, and Beach Bomb just sits right off the two of them and then turns for home and blows by them. And I just think as long as Louis keeps her close enough but doesn't let her get into the pace that I think the other two will engage in, I just see her getting a perfect trip. We'll get to best bets later, but I really love, at least on paper, the way that this race should shape up for her.
I mean, look, I'll show the only thing is Charlene's Dream is very, very fast as well. And then Be Your Best is not slow. So, but that's the only thing that I didn't like about Beach Bomb in this race was the fact that she has 2 main speeds to her inside and outside. So when you would imagine, right, when they break from the gate, Louis going to have to completely read the break, or he's just going to have to go and hope that, you're not going to be 3 wide, three in the middle of 3 horses going into the first turn. But that's my only thing. Like if she was drawn outside, I probably might even have her on the win end. It's just a matter of, again, it's hard to see envision a race where she's going to get a nice stalking trip with those 2 horses, both to her inside and outside. Of course, Be Your Best, Charlie, is a horse that has rated in the past. It'll be interesting to see how they run off of this little bit of a layoff. Of course, Grade 1 winner, and of course the Filly and Mare Invite Pegasus World Cup winner. She's extremely talented, Charlie, and we both have her in the mix somewhere, but she's also cross-entered, as we've mentioned, with a lot of other horses, so keep that in mind. Take a look at Friday's card at Saratoga, but she's extremely talented, Charlie, but again, it's hard to see, for me, a winning way around the track for her, on especially at low odds.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the 4 wasn't in this race, I would have had her on top and not even thought twice, because then I think she's a little looser on the lead, and I think if the 3 tried to keep up with her pace, it would be a little difficult. But if she does stay in, and it's kind of funny because I feel like if she's out, it makes me like Beach Bomb even more, because I don't think Charlene's Dream can get this distance, and I think Louis would stay close enough. But if she does stay in at the same time, I think the 4 kind of messes her up too much. So for me, this would be a short-priced favorite, especially when you see it Safri and Tyler G. This one will likely end up being overbet as your favorite. But when I watched visually, yes, this horse won a grade 1 and was pretty dominant at one going away. But it also kind of looked like, now I know also went pretty damn fast, but it looked like Irad was kind of shoving her at the end, and, obviously had enough of a lead that didn't matter, but also like that was as far as she could go. Now, obviously has experience going further, but they also didn't go as fast. So I think she can get the distance, but I think with the 4 in this race could make things a little challenging for her. So for me is one that I think, would win between the 4 in that speed duel, but maybe it takes too much out of her for being able to hold off Beach Bomb and some of these others like your 5 that you'll get into in a second. I think the talent's there. I just don't know if I love the way this field turned out for her.
You hit it on the head, and that's exactly why I don't like any of the 3 speed horses. Beach Bomb's by far the one I like the most. The problem is that I don't like her sandwiched in between those other 2 speed horses. So again, I love Beach Bomb. I think she's extremely talented and can win. Last time out, she ran a huge race against She Feels Pretty in the New York. So definitely, if she can take a little bit, even more of a step forward off that 100, she's easily in contention to win here. You know who needs to take a step forward is my horse, the number 5, Spanish Eyes in this race. Brendan Walsh trains. Ben Curtis rides, of course, has been lights out. In the last race at Delaware Park, in the Robert Dick Memorial, I thought Spanish Eyes ran really well. And this was another track that was playing very nice, decently nice to speed that day. But Marksman Queen had it completely her own way the whole way around the track. And you'll see Spanish Eyes, this will be, I believe, her second race since coming over from Europe. Which, again, Charlie, I know, is a big fan of that angle.
I was saying, if you want to show also the break, I would say the break was brutal.
And that's what I was going to say. She breaks super slow. Again, for her, it's not exactly the biggest problem because of the fact that she likes to be farther back. But when you have the favorite that's going out to the lead and is going to set these pretty easy fractions, it's going to be tough to get out. You can see her boxed in on the inside the whole way around. And I'll skip ahead. I love the distance for this horse in this race as well. Marksman Queen, you'll see on the front end there. Again, going to get pretty good, and you can tell exactly who's riding this horse when you come back. But Spanish Eyes gives it a really, really good run. But again, with those types of fractions and Marksman Queen on the front end, you're not going to get there. But she ends up closing late as well. I thought this was a sneaky good effort for only the 88 buyer. And the fact that you're going to have, again, in a 6-horse field, you're going to have at least 3 of those horses vying for the lead the entire time. If she sits right behind those horses, I feel like she has if she could have a fantastic run down the stretch and could catch these horses coming down when they are tired. Again, Beach Bomb wanting to be on the lead and all these other things we talked about, I think could set up for Spanish Eyes, and you will get paid to find out on her, which is something I also like. I love that she's the 5th choice in this race because, again, she does have to improve. But, again, this will be 3rd time off of that layoff coming over from Germany. I think she can take another step forward, and if she does, she could be very likely to just completely trip out in this race. Charlie, real quickly, Duvet Day is that same one where she's going to need a fast pace to turn into. But again, only 6-horse field, and you're getting the extra distance, which I think could help her. So Duvet Day could definitely be one to run late.
Yeah, I just think this is one, it's 3rd off the layoff now, and I agree. I think this is one that she's just been crying out for more distance and now gets it here. I think makes a ton of sense. To be honest, I think from a value perspective, now seeing the morning lines, I would honestly put your 5 in 3rd. I just think one of them could absolutely close up for a piece. And if you're giving me those similar odds and they both have the similar sort of strengths and weaknesses, I'd rather the value on the 5 now, looking kind of like, we talked about my 6 in the turf sprint earlier, kind of looking at it now, like, yeah, I probably missed something, and realistically, because I forgot that was the race where the 5 broke, so I would probably put that one in 3rd instead. But look, this one can absolutely get it done. It's going to be interesting because this one hasn't run this far despite being a deep closer in a while, and when this one did, got the setup. Granted, it was also 30-1, but didn't really lift a hoof. But, could make sense, but I also would be a little wary if that one's overbet a little bit.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you as well. The money's going to be very interesting to see where it goes also on Saturday, and keep an eye on those cross entries with Be Your Best on Saturday. In the Beverly D stakes, I'm going 5-3-2. Charlie's going 3-2-6. Charlie, now it comes, of course, for the race we used to love back in the day. Of course, still love to bet on it. I love a good long distance turf race, but man, this race is such a shell of its former self. And again, we harped on it for the first 10 minutes of this show, but again, I'd be completely remiss if, for me, especially if I don't continue to touch on that. Is the grade 1, I'll say it once, it is the grade 1 Arlington Million, of course, no longer at the best race course in the entire world. It's a 1.25 miles, the world's first $1 million race, or sorry, the US's first $1 million race. I don't know if it's world, you can check me on that, but I feel like it also could be 1.25 miles on the outer turf course. And your morning line favorite, a horse that I love going this type of distance, is the number 8, Integration. Johnny V, Shug McGahee at 8-5. Second choice is the European Invader, Cairo. Ben Curtis at 7-2. And your third choice is the number 6, the always consistent Fort Washington. Junior Alvarado rides for the other Shug McGahee in this race, Charlie. And no surprise, you and I are both going with the same 3 horses, funny enough, but we are both going with the number 8, Integration. And Charlie, we talk about how value is very, it's what it is to you. If 8-5, you think if he goes off at 8-5 and you think he should be 1-1, that's value. And if he's 8-5, Charlie, this might be we might double up on the irresponsible wagers of the week with the number 8, Integration.
Yeah, I've had a tough relationship with Integration, but the reality is this horse should probably be 4-5 in this race, or even money, like you were saying. I mean, look, he's had all the talent in the world. He's been a horse that has had massive expectations and, has met them at a lot of times. He's also at times where he's come up just short. But I really do think he's a horse that, as horrible as it is to say, it's just the reality in my eyes. I think in his race 2 back and 3 back, he just suffered from, well, actually, no. Let me be a little nicer. His race 3 back, he just ran into Carl Spackler, who I don't know why they sent overseas, but in America was just too damn good for him. But if you look at his race 2 back, he got detoried to the worst level possible. I mean, it was one of the worst rides ever. Completely cost me, ruined my day. It was one of my best bets. Cost about $4 or $5 grand. I had that horse as a single. Absolutely believed in him and got one of the worst rides you'll ever watch in horse racing. Don't recommend watching it. Anyways, then comes back and gets a great ride from Johnny V. I mean, look, deterministic. Carmouche gave a dream ride. He walked the dog.
Absolutely.
He masterfully timed everything up. And despite that, Johnny V, who, by the way, at that time of year still has been riding great, but at that time of year at Saratoga in New York, he's just been unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been prime Johnny V all over again and seems to have found himself and did everything right and just lost my head simply because he had the better animal. But again, deterministic just was able to dictate the pace and held them off. Now gets to this race, gets outside. Johnny V will put him in a good spot again. I think he'll make sure he's close enough that that kind of thing doesn't happen. I also just don't think there's anyone in this race talented enough that's going to be able to walk the dog successfully and hold them off. He'll be close enough. He's the most likely winner in our sequence. He's going to win. I think anything at above even money is true value. I think even money to 4-5 is probably fair value. I think anything above that is actual additional value. Like you said, unreasonable wagers. I mean, for me, I'm going to do it the Kyle Roscoe way from my learning from you and play doubles going from the race. We'll get to best bets later, but, using some thoughts on the race before into this one. But yeah, integration's just all, and maybe even some exactas as well. Integration's just all the goods. And when you look at all the grade ones he's in, he really does. I know it's a weaker field, but he's one that you would definitely say belongs in this kind of race.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I got the good old Michael Scott treatment there, because considering the double is the Matt Miller way, also Kyle Roscoe. This is what, like I said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. I appreciate the Michael Scott treatment on that one, but no, I love him. And again, they keep throwing him in 1.8 miles. I don't know why they threw him in the Maker's Mark mile, Charlie, to be completely honest with you. I think this horse wants every single bit of the longer distances. I think even longer than 1.8 miles is exactly what this horse needs and wants. And to be fair, Charlie, he runs amazing at Colonial. If you're a horse for course person as well, 4 for 4 in the top 2 at Colonial, and the only race he lost was last year's Arlington Million at Colonial. losing to Nation's Pride. And again, we talk a lot about Nation's Pride here in the U.S. Integration looks to be all the goods in this race, Charlie, and I completely agree with you. Anything above even money, this horse will be an absolute slam for me. And again, it's not often that I put these types of horses on my best bets, but I will show you, at least on the win end. But spoiler alert, he will be there. Cairo is the one horse, Charlie, that's very interesting in here. It's the only European invader, but a very good one at that. And this is the only horse that gives me any type of reservation in this race because he ran really well in the Queen Anne. And this is Galileo, Quality Road. This is a very, very well-meant, well-bred horse. And the fact that, again, second in the grade 2, third in the grade 1 Queen Anne at Ascot, the only thing that gives me the reservation is this horse in the last 2 years is 0 for 12. So to be completely honest with you, at a horse that's probably going to be somewhere around 3-1, if you can trust that on the win end, by all means, go for it if you like Cairo. But for me, that's going to be a little bit too low to find out if this horse can actually show winning ways again.
No, and I completely agree. I mean, look, this is one I did have in third because, as you touched on in the preview, Fort Washington, which we'll get to in a moment, was just an ultra-consistent horse that I had to put in second. But yeah, look, obviously has some time form numbers that look decent. Has run against some nice horses like Nation's Pride that we just talked about. Also, ran a nice, got crushed, but ran second to Measured Time, who's a nice horse. Ran against the Foxes. Been running in some nice graded stakes races. But yeah, my main concern is just, you look through all of the things we can even see through February of 24 and you don't see a victory. So obviously, that's going to be a concern. This horse hasn't won in a very long time and seems to, obviously, with the 9 seconds, have a habit of not actually getting it done. Again, we'll get to best bets later and how I'm using this horse, but could obviously end up shocking. And look, I would argue is probably the most likely one to beat Integration, the aspect that we haven't seen how this one could run in the U.S. And normally I also am hesitant first start U.S., but I feel like for all these other ones we have seen run in America that we've seen a lot more of, we just know they're not as good as Integration. I don't think Cairo is either. But I do think if you tiered this race, I think he's one of the 2 horses I'd have in the second tier, obviously with Integration being a tier of his own.
Yeah, and Fort Washington's the horse you have in second, I have in third. I want to talk about one other horse in this that shout out to my man Siggy Mendoza talked about in the chat. Fort Washington, Charlie, is a horse that always gives his run. And this is one of my dad's favorite horses that in running right now. And I was telling him last time, I was like, hey, be wary because this horse loves the extra 1/8 of a mile. And the fact that he's only getting the 16th should be, a little bit of a red flag. And, my dad's like, oh, but yeah, we got to bet him, for old time's sake. And then, then he runs, a closing 4th. Now he gets that extra distance, Charlie. So you'd imagine going back to running his race in here.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he's been trying to form. He's a horse that I've loved a lot too, and has honestly made me a lot of money because I feel like he weirdly gets disrespected. I mean, you look and even when he's been winning, you don't see favorite listed once there. I mean, outside of his race last time, you don't see a race where he was listed at less than 5-1. The other thing I would only give a slight pushback on. Now, I don't disagree with you entirely. I don't think maybe a mile 16th is form, although he did get it done at Gulfstream where it would work even more against him. The one slight pushback I would give is also that they completely and utterly walked the dog in that race.
Yep.
24-4 and 50 flat. But that being said, I do think he still prefers longer distance. I just think if he's going shorter and they do that, he has no chance. And he still flew late. It's just couldn't get there in time. But like you said, gets Junior back aboard, is an ultra consistent horse. I mean, you look at the figures. I mean, since and towards the end of 24 and on, he's only run a 95 and above. I mean, he objectively hasn't run a bad effort. So for me, I just love that. Again, he's the other one that I think fits in that tier too. I would almost argue he's the safer bet of the 2 for who would likely perform and finish second, just because we don't know what Cairo really is.
Correct.
But he's going to run game. It's also third off the layoff. I think he makes a ton of sense here. I mean, even you look 2 back at Pimlico, they walked the dog in that race, and he still managed to sit a little closer and be tactical and get there, which I think he could do here as well. I just don't think he's the level of Integration, but he's that other one in that second tier that certainly makes sense underneath.
I completely agree with that. I don't even need to touch on anything else. I completely agree with you there. The one horse, obviously, that is the complete wild card in here is the Kentucky Derby winner. And of course, from last year, and it still pains me to say that. Of course, if you know, you know. But this is just a really interesting move by Kenny McPeak. And you can see here, not a single sibling of this dam has run on the turf. You can look at all the difference. And of course, I'm a little too zoomed in, so I apologize. There's really no turf breeding at all in here. Mam had a little bit and was a winner on the turf, however, at the claiming level. So it's a very interesting move to me. Golden Sense, you can look down here, basically wins across the board, 13%, no matter if you're on turf or on the dirt. So that could be something for you. But worked over the the Oklahoma, turf course. This is just a complete wild card. And if he goes to the lead, like my man Siggy Mendoza thinks, and obviously you can see it on time for him here, he's going to go to the lead. He should have a little bit other of pace up front with the number 2 Time Song and the number 4 Runaway Storm. But I mean, if he gets the lead, Charlie, and he takes the turf, granted, 2 very, very big question marks in a race where he's probably going to be a lower price just because so much name recognition. I mean, he could win if he takes to the turf. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. For me, there's
not
a lot
impossible
of
is a very, very good way to say it.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say for the odds you're going to get, I don't love that. That's the way I describe them, as not impossible. But I also don't love the numbers. First turf for McPeak, 3% on 66 tries and 6% on 53 tries for dirt to turf for a trainer who's so damn good. Not exactly numbers that are inspiring, as well as I know it's a workout, but the fact that the turf work wasn't anything eye-catching makes me a little concerned. That being said, what I will say with him is, again, he is going to be forward. I don't hate that Kenny's trying to be different with this one, because we've seen what he's done when he's tried to run against this kind of level at his division in the dirt. And unfortunately, the reality has been that what we've seen is, that he's not at that upper echelon of, the Mind Frames and Sierra Leones of the world. Like, that's just the reality. He's not there. But yeah, if they want to try something, and at least on paper with the way this race sets up, he should be able, to be forward and have a chance and save all the ground. I don't mind them giving it a shot. It's just, for me, I don't want to find out. And with the way he's going to be bet, because people will see the name, that just makes me not want to find out even more. And if he beats me, then so be it.
Yeah, and the thing is that Matt Miller brings up War of Will in the Maker's Mark Mile, and yeah, that's a very good comparison. And now that you brought that up, of course, that gives me a little bit of the spookies. But I don't think, I think integration's definitely the goods in this race. And if he runs his race at the 1.25 miles, he should be very tough in here. I'm going 8.56. Charlie's going 8.65 in the Arlington Million at Colonial. Charlie, best bets. We've kind of hinted at a bunch of them already, but you are going the double and an exact race number 9. You're going with a double out of the Secretariat between the number 4 Simulate and the number 8 Dream On, and you're singling the number 3 Beach Bomb in the Beverly D Stakes and going with race 11. You can also play that as a pick 3, because you obviously have 3 races in a row there, but you're going in exacta integration over Cairo and Fort Washington.
Yeah, starting, in race 9, again, I think Simulate makes a ton of sense. I don't think I'm going to get those odds. However, you and I talked at length about how tactical he is, that, he's probably the horse that has the most upside in this field and has the most impressive effort last time. So love that one. But again, I still think Dream On, I agree with a lot of what your criticisms were, but I also think at the end of the day, there's a reason, that you had him in second and that I did as well, is that he still is realistically the class of the field and can make sense. And again, I think that 78 is better than what it looked like visually and with the way the track played against him. And then I'm going into Beach Bomb. Obviously, you have to see if the 2 scratches, I like Beach Bomb even more, but also that the odds won't be great. That being said, I hear what your concerns were, but I trust Louis too much. I just think when they break, he's just going to see how the race goes. He's just going to let it happen naturally. If he feels like they're not going that fast, then he trusts, because I think he has the best horse in the field. If he doesn't think they're moving fast enough, I think he'll go to the lead. If they do, which is what I think will happen, because I just can't see that 4 not trying to go crazy fast, I think Louis will take back. And I just think on class and ability, Beach Bomb will find the right spot to win there. And then going into the last, again, I think integration is just levels above the rest of this field. And look, maybe Mystic Dan shocks us. I'm willing to let that happen to me. But I think the next tier is just Cairo and Fort Washington. And I trust that one of them will be able to get second. So I'll play that exacta that way. And I think I'll get at least, 5-1 on any exacta with integration on top. And for me, that's enough value, where if I think it really is only one of those 2, I just hammer those instead of betting integration to win it, 4-5.
I hope it's more than that.
And I hear you. Maybe do a little, like you said, maybe also do a little pick 3 here as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, if he's 4-5, this best bet will change, guys. But I'm not one to put heavy morning line favorites on the win end, but I just like him way too much, guys. You can see on the bottom of the screen right now, and that's a host failed. The race numbers aren't even correct. In race number 9, we talked at length, Charlie, about both of us liking Simulate on top. I don't think we're getting that 8-1 price, but if we do, prayers up, because that would be a very nice 8-1 to catch in that race and in the Secretariat and in the Million stakes. I want integration on the win end. I'm just going to completely smash it again. Anything over even money, I agree, is value on integration to me. There's a lot of other question marks on a lot of other horses that are going to be close to favoritism. So again, I'm not one to usually put horses to 5 on the win end in my best bets, but there's sometimes when you just believe so much in a horse that this is what you got to do. You can clown me all you want, but again, when the integration wins at 7-5, oh God, we can only hope. But if he wins at 7-5, we're going to have a lot of money. And I know that gazebo between me and Matt will be going crazy. Gentlemen, Charlie, thank you very much. Again, this is a card that's close to both of our hearts. So the fact that we get to cover it, of course, means a lot to both of us. And again, shout out to Matt, Brad Anderson, and everyone else that'll be in the gazebo. I'm sure there will be a lot of these big boys consumed in that gazebo. Of course, we're going to be at Saratoga from Wednesday until Sunday, everyone. So if you guys are out in the Saratoga area, please come on by or message me on Twitter at APRoscoeK. Would love to meet you guys, have a beverage, and talk some horse racing with you guys. Again, if you're not, still want to talk horse racing, still DM me, because I'm always open to talking racing with anyone and everyone. Charlie, for my co-host, Charlie Freeman, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, episode 142 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering Arlington Million Day at Colonial. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.